Last week, a security expert from Paris called me. His voice was trembling. I've just returned from the Sahel. With 20 years of experience in this field, I have never seen anything like it. Ibrahim Traoré and his 5,700 soldiers have achieved what 13,000 UN peacekeepers and 5,000 French troops could not do in a decade. They have turned a hellscape into a paradise in just 8 months. When I asked him what he was talking about, his answer stunned me. The Sahel is no longer a dead zone. It is becoming the epicenter of a revolution that will change all of Africa, and the world is deliberately silent about this. To understand why this decision is so seismic, we must go back to 2012 when the Mali crisis began. The Sahel was once one of the most unstable regions in the world, with terrorism spreading uncontrollably. Mali lost nearly half of its territory to terrorist groups in just a few months. The number of refugees soared from 150,000 to over 400,000 in 2012 alone. In Niger, terrorist attacks increased by 300% between 2015 and 2020. Burkina Faso saw more than 2 million people displaced by violence. The entire region was on the brink of total collapse. For decades, experts from the United Nations, France, and the West insisted that external military intervention was the only way. They launched Operation Serval, then Operation Barkhane, with 5,000 French soldiers. They established MINUSMA with 13,000 peacekeeping personnel. They presented numbers, reports, and recommendations that seemed irrefutable. The cost of these operations ran into billions of dollars annually. They were dead wrong. Until Ibrahim Traoré appeared and completely changed the game. He is not a conventional politician or a general with extensive experience. Born in 1988, Traoré was only 34 when he took power, making him one of the youngest leaders in the world. Hailing from a poor farming family in Mohun province, he studied geology at the University of Ouagadougou. Before joining the army, he was a young geological engineer with a dream of serving his country. What is special about Traoré is the rare combination of a scientist's mind and a soldier's fierce patriotism. The context of his rise to power took place on September 30th, 2022, when a group of young officers, led by him, carried out a coup to overthrow the previous military government. The initial reaction from the international community was skepticism and condemnation. The European Union suspended aid. ECOWAS threatened sanctions. France severed military cooperation. The world predicted that Burkina Faso would sink deeper into chaos. When Traoré assumed the presidency, his first message was simple but full of determination. Burkina Faso will solve its own security problems. We need no one but ourselves. This country will be liberated by its own sons and daughters. But unlike the empty promises of previous politicians, Traoré had prepared a specific, scientific, and achievable plan. In the first phase, he focused on internal consolidation within the first 6 months, aiming to increase the army's combat capability from 11,000 to 20,000 soldiers. The method involved intensive training, improved equipment, and most importantly, a change in combat morale. The expected outcome was complete control of major cities and main transportation routes. The second phase, lasting the next 12 months, built on the success of the first phase by expanding operations to rural areas and borders. The expected challenges were counter-attacks from terrorist groups and international pressure, but he had a response plan by building an alliance with Mali and Niger. In the third phase, with a long-term vision of 2 to 3 years, he envisioned a Burkina Faso that not only defended itself, but also became a center of stability for the entire region. The expected international impact was a shift in the balance of power in West Africa, with Burkina Faso playing a leading rather than a dependent role. And the most important thing that made the difference, everything would be done by Africans themselves, with African resources and intellect. No aid from the World Bank, no loans from the IMF, no dependence on Western technology, no need for foreign experts to direct. And then, on March 15th, 2024, the miracle began when Traoré ordered the deployment of 5,700 Burkinabe soldiers across the Sahel. March 15th, 2024, will be recorded as the day Africa changed forever. There were no loudspeakers urging action, no top-down propaganda, no threats or coercion, just a simple message passed from unit to unit, from base to base. The Sahel is calling, Burkina Faso answers. The response from the military and the people was immediate and more powerful than Traoré could have imagined. In the northern Sahel region of Burkina Faso, 2,000 soldiers were deployed to secure vital roads and border villages. Participants included local militias with over 5,000 volunteers. The tools used included homemade armored vehicles, drones manufactured in Burkina Faso, and an encrypted communication system. The immediate result was an 80% reduction in terrorist attacks in the first week of deployment. The morale was one of indescribable excitement and pride. At the Mali-Niger border, a unique feature of this region is its complex terrain and numerous illegal cross-border routes. A local resident shared, "For the first time in 10 years, we see soldiers of our own nationality coming to protect us. Not the French, not the Americans, but our own brothers." A touching detail was the sight of children running out to wave at the military convoy, offering flowers and water to the soldiers. The local challenge was distinguishing between civilians and terrorists, but this was solved through close cooperation with village chiefs. In the central region, where 1,700 soldiers were stationed, the scale of operations included establishing 15 permanent checkpoints and 8 mobile patrol teams. The unique contribution of this area was providing the logistical base for the entire campaign. Connection with other regions was maintained through a radio and satellite communication system set up by Burkinabe engineers. What was astonishing was not just the scale or speed, but the spontaneous spirit of unity among the people. Amadou Sanogo, a 45-year-old welder in Dori, is a father of 6. His family's situation was very difficult as his children had to drop out of school due to terrorist violence. His motivation to participate was the desire for children to be able to return to school safely. His specific action was to volunteer to repair damaged military vehicles for free and to teach welding to young soldiers. He expressed his personal feelings. "I want my children to be proud to say their father helped liberate our country." But the Sahel campaign was not just about emotion or spirit. It was about meticulously designed science, organization, and operational efficiency. The distribution system was organized in a cellular model, with each unit of 50 to 100 people self-sufficient in food and equipment for 2 weeks. The division of labor was based on expertise: combat, logistics, intelligence, medical, and civilian liaison. Coordination was achieved through a 3-tier command system: central, regional, and local. Conflict resolution was handled by reconciliation councils involving local elders. In terms of technology integration, simple technologies used included shortwave radios, handheld GPS, homemade drones, and mobile solar power systems. Resourcefulness involved converting civilian trucks into armored vehicles and leveraging local knowledge of terrain and weather. Innovations included the invention of a type of bulletproof armor made from local materials and an early warning system using a civilian information network. Information was shared through an encrypted messaging app developed by Burkinabe engineers. Quality control was ensured through daily reporting procedures, weekly equipment checks, and monthly combat effectiveness assessments. Metrics for measurement and tracking included the number of terrorist attacks, the area under control, the number of returning civilians, and the level of community satisfaction. Adjustments and improvements were based on feedback from soldiers and local people, with weekly review meetings to adjust tactics. Transparency was demonstrated by publishing casualty figures, operational costs, and mission progress to the press. A specific example in the Gourma region, Alpha Unit, consisting of 120 soldiers, carried out the mission to liberate the town of Ansongo from terrorists. The process took 72 hours. starting with 24 hours of remote reconnaissance, followed by 24 hours of surrounding and isolating the target. The main challenge was protecting civilians and avoiding unnecessary casualties. The solution was to use loudspeakers to inform civilians to evacuate and to attack only at night when the streets were empty. The phased results showed 0 civilian casualties, 15 terrorists eliminated, 8 captured alive, and over 200 assorted firearms recovered. The measured results showed that the number of terrorist attacks decreased from 45 per month to 12 per month, a 73% reduction in just the first 3 months. The secure area increased from 40% of the territory to 78% of the territory within 6 months. The number of returning civilians increased from 50,000 to 180,000, demonstrating the people's confidence in the army's ability to protect them. One participating soldier shared, "Since I was a child, I heard stories of African heroes fighting against colonialism. Now I feel like I am continuing that story. We are not just fighting for Burkina Faso, but for the dignity of all of Africa. Every day I wake up, I know I am doing the right thing for the children of tomorrow." August 20th, 2024 will be forever remembered in the history of the Sahel and possibly the world. It was the day of the first Sahel summit organized by African countries themselves without the participation of any major power. Here, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso officially signed the Alliance of Sahel States Treaty, creating the first fully independent military political bloc in West Africa since the post-colonial era. The numbers speak for themselves. The security rate increased from 40% to 85% in the covered area in just 5 months. The number of kidnappings dropped from 200 per month to 35 per month, an 82% decrease compared to before the deployment. Inter-regional trade increased by 150% as routes became secure. Compared to initial forecasts from international experts that it would take at least 3 to 5 years to stabilize, the results achieved in just 8 months far exceeded all expectations. But the most impressive number is not a dry statistic, but the revival of national pride. Children began to dream of becoming soldiers instead of migrating abroad. Mothers no longer feared for their children on their way to school. Farmers dared to invest in new crops. The spirit of unity and belief in the self-reliance of Africans was restored. Traoré, on the scene on that historic day, said, "Today we prove that Africa does not need anyone to save it. We can save ourselves and become an inspiration for the world. This is not the end, but only the beginning of a new Africa, self-reliant and sovereign. But this is only the beginning of a larger revolution spreading across the continent." Within 6 months, visible changes appeared throughout the Sahel. Economically, the regional GDP grew by 12% compared to the same period last year, mainly due to the recovery of agriculture and trade. The unemployment rate fell from 35% to 22% as economic activities returned to normal. Inter-regional trade surged, with exports increasing by 180% and imports by 120% due to safe roads. Foreign investment from China, Russia, and other African countries increased by 300%, while investment from the West decreased by 60%. Socially, people's lives changed markedly as children could attend school regularly, people dared to travel at night, markets bustled again, and traditional festivals were held. The school attendance rate increased from 45% to 78% as schools were secured. The quality of education improved with the addition of subjects on African history and self-defense skills. Health indicators improved, with life expectancy increasing by 3 years and child mortality rates dropping by 25%. The security situation stabilized, with the crime rate falling by 60% and people's sense of safety increasing by 85%. People from various walks of life shared their feelings. Fatima, a 32-year-old teacher from Gao, said, "I stopped teaching for 2 years because the school was closed due to terrorism. Now I am back in the classroom with 45 eager students. They draw pictures of heroic soldiers instead of guns and bullets. Musa, a 58-year-old merchant in Mopti. Before, I only dared to transport goods during the day and had to hire bodyguards. Now I can travel at night and have saved 40% on transportation costs. Psychologically and spiritually, the biggest change was the mindset shift from passively waiting for aid to proactively solving problems. Trust in the government increased from 25% to 82%, and trust in the military rose from 30% to 91%. Observed behaviors included a 400% increase in youth enlisting in the army, women joining community self-defense organizations, and elders telling stories of national heroes to children. A new culture formed with songs praising the Sahel Alliance, festivals honoring fallen soldiers, and traditions of giving gifts to military families. A specific example is Ibrahim Traoré, a 28-year-old computer engineer in Ouagadougou, who shared, "I used to dream only of migrating to Europe to find a better job. My family had saved €5,000 for me to cross the border illegally. Now, I see development opportunities right here at home. I am building a mobile app to support farmers and have already received orders from 3 neighboring countries. My life has completely changed because I believe in the future of Africa." The before and after images show a stark difference. Roads once deserted for fear of terrorists are now bustling with traffic. Markets that once closed early now operate late into the evening, and schools that were once locked are now filled with the laughter of children. The impact rippled beyond the borders of the 3 countries like increasingly powerful waves. In the region, the reactions of neighboring countries were diverse. Ghana and Togo expressed admiration and a desire to learn from the experience. Nigeria showed concern about the shifting balance of power. Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire maintained cautious relations. Chad and Mauritania are considering joining the Sahel Alliance. Morocco proposed cooperation on security and trade. Learning policies began to emerge as Tanzania announced it would adopt Burkina Faso's local militia model. Kenya sent an observation delegation to study military organization. Ethiopia invited experts from the Sahel Alliance to consult on counterterrorism. New partnerships were established, with the African Union providing military equipment, China investing in infrastructure, Russia providing military training, and Iran assisting with drone technology. Globally, the reaction from international organizations was mixed. The United Nations acknowledged notable progress in stabilizing the region, but remained concerned about democratic legitimacy. The World Bank and IMF were surprised by the economic success achieved without their loans or aid. Development experts from Harvard and Oxford had to rewrite their studies on Africa. Professor Michael Roberts from the London School of Economics admitted, "The Sahel model has shattered all our theories about development. Perhaps we have misunderstood Africa's capacity for self-reliance." International media was clearly divided. The BBC and CNN continued to focus on concerns about democracy rather than recognizing achievements. Al Jazeera and RT reported positively on the Sahel miracle. The China Daily praised the model of independent development. Academic studies began to appear with titles like The Sahel Alternative and Rethinking African Agency. The global investment community started to take notice, with the establishment of specialized Sahel investment funds. Among the African diaspora worldwide, the reaction was powerful. African Americans organized supportive rallies in New York and Washington. African communities in London and Paris held fundraisers to support the Sahel Alliance. Remittances from the diaspora increased by 250%, primarily sent to invest in education and healthcare. A wave of reverse migration began as many professionals returned to Africa instead of staying in the West. Pride in African heritage was strongly restored in the global community. Most notable was the emergence of the Traoré effect, a new term used by analysts to describe the phenomenon of young African leaders beginning to adopt a similar model. Julius Malema in South Africa publicly praised Traoré as "our brother." Bobi Wine in Uganda declared he would learn from the spirit of self-reliance. Even in Jamaica and Haiti, Pan-Africanist movements took inspiration from Burkina Faso. Geopolitical expert Dr. Aisha Kamara from the University of Ghana commented, "What Traoré has done is not just changing the Sahel, but changing how the world sees Africa. From the continent of despair, we are becoming the continent of creative solutions." This is not just a short-term success or a temporary phenomenon. Traoré has a very clear and scientific long-term vision for the future of the Sahel. The second phase, over the next 12 to 18 months, will focus on expanding the model throughout West Africa with the specific goal of establishing 50 allied military bases and training 25,000 professional soldiers. The expected challenges are pushback from external forces and significant financial needs, but solutions have been prepared through the optimal exploitation of mineral resources and the development of a domestic defense industry. The third phase, from 2027 to 2030, sets a greater ambition for the Sahel Alliance to become the center of stability for all of Africa. The expected international impact is an Africa that no longer depends on UN peacekeeping but resolves its internal conflicts. Technological development will focus on AI and robotics applied to the military and agriculture. Institution building will include the establishment of a Sahel Development Bank and an Alliance Military University. The 2030 vision paints a completely different Africa. The Sahel will become the region with the highest standard of living in West Africa, with a GDP per capita of $8,000. Its position in the region and the world will be that of Africa's political military center with a significant voice in global issues. The quality of life for its people will be guaranteed with free education up to university, universal health care, and a complete social security system. Its contribution to humanity will be demonstrated by exporting its model of self-reliant development and becoming a center for research on conflict resolution in other regions. And most importantly, this model can be replicated and applied to any nation or community with the right determination and method. So what can we learn from the Sahel miracle under Ibrahim Traoré? The story of the Sahel teaches us 5 important lessons that any community can apply. The first lesson on the power of self-reliance shows that when the Sahel Alliance refused to depend on foreign aid and decided to solve its own security problems, it discovered immense hidden resources and capabilities. A specific example is the 3 countries being able to produce 80% of their necessary military equipment themselves instead of importing it at high prices. This means that any community can find solutions from its own resources and wisdom, instead of always seeking help from the outside. The second lesson on the value of unity proves that the Sahel's success did not come from a single genius, but from the collective power of 85 million people working towards a common goal. A concrete example is the scene of 10,000 women voluntarily cooking for the army without being asked or paid. In any project or goal, collective strength always surpasses individual effort, no matter how talented the individual. The third lesson on the importance of vision shows that Traoré not only had a short-term plan, but a clear long-term vision, helping everyone understand they were contributing to something greater. A specific example is that every soldier understood they were not just protecting their village, but writing the history of Africa's liberation. This teaches us that any leader must be able to communicate a grand vision to motivate people. The fourth lesson on the power of simple solutions demonstrates that great improvements often come from simple ideas executed well. Instead of buying expensive fighter jets, the Sahel built drones from local materials that were just as effective. Instead of hiring foreign experts, they trained their own. The fifth lesson on the importance of execution shows that the best ideas are useless if not implemented decisively and consistently. Traoré not only talked but also acted. He not only planned but also closely monitored the execution of every detail. These lessons apply not only to the Sahel but to any community, organization, or individual in the world facing challenges and wanting to create positive change. Because at its core, this is a story about basic human values, belief in human potential, the power of unity and cooperation, the determination to overcome adversity, and a vision and hope for a better future. So the question for each of us is, if 85 million people in the Sahel can liberate their land from terrorism and build a self-reliant future, what can you do in your community, in your job, in your life? Change does not require huge budgets. The Sahel Alliance achieved a miracle with scarce resources, relying mainly on creativity and determination. Change does not require permission from a higher authority or an international organization. Change does not require advanced, expensive technology or a high-level degree from a prestigious university. Change only requires real determination and commitment from people who believe in their ability to create a better future. Start with small, concrete actions within your sphere of influence. Collaborate and share with like-minded people. Be patient and persistent in overcoming temporary difficulties. Have a clear vision of the goal and the meaning of your actions. Today, right now, you can start by identifying a specific problem in your community that you care about and want to help solve. Learn about it and connect with others who share your concern. Start with one small but concrete action this week, even if it's just sharing information or organizing a discussion. Because as Ibrahim Traoré said, true strength does not lie in skyscrapers or modern arsenals, but in the hearts and minds of the people. When people are united and determined, nothing is impossible. True heroes don't wear capes or have superpowers. They don't need a PhD from Harvard or the backing of a billionaire. They just need hardworking hands, creative minds, and loving hearts, along with an unshakable belief in their ability to create a better future. They are ordinary people like us, but they dare to act instead of just complaining, refuse to wait for the perfect opportunity, and build change themselves, step by step, day by day. Ibrahim Traoré and the 85 million people of the Sahel have proven that nothing is impossible when people are united and determined. They have turned bold dreams into a living reality. If this story inspires you, please like this video so the algorithm can share it with more people. Share it with your friends and family to spread this positive spirit. Subscribe to the channel to follow more stories about human strength and the potential of Africa. Comment below to share your thoughts and inspiration about the Sahel model. Let's honor the silent heroes of the Sahel and remind the world that the true power to change lies not in the skyscrapers of Wall Street or at G7 conferences, but in the hands and hearts of ordinary people when they unite for a common goal. Thank you for taking the time to follow this story of the Sahel revolution. And remember, change starts with you today, with the smallest decision in your daily life. Just as Ibrahim Traoré started with a dream of a self-reliant Burkina Faso, you can start with a dream of a better community.